Okay, so today we're talking about the Fuji X-S10 and specifically 5 things I love about this camera. The first thing I absolutely love about this camera is the grip. This camera came out and it was kind of a difficult camera to swallow for like the diehard Fuji camera users, which were used to the dials on top. This has more of a PASM style layout. But with that comes the deeper grip. So as you can see, the grip on the X-S10 compared to the grip on the X-T2, as you can see, it's a massive difference. So with the change of style, also came an advantage, which is the bigger grip, and I absolutely love it. I used to use the X-T2. This was my first real Fuji camera, or my first Fuji camera in general, and I absolutely love this camera. It's really premium. You know, you can feel like you have a hefty camera in hand, but the grip for me is absolutely horrible. Like my pinky just, it slides off, and you know, it's a premium camera. Like you can feel you have a hefty camera in hand, but with that comes that shallow grip, and it's really horrible in my opinion, and it kind of is detrimental to this camera for me, and I didn't really like to pick it up for like travel photography or anything like that where you're carrying your camera for multiple hours, and it was just a pain, like really a pain. I did my trip to California, which I talked about in a previous video with the Fujifilm recipe. I will link that video up above here. And I didn't have my X-S10 yet, and I used the X-T2. And man, I wish I just had the X-S10 for my 2-week travel there with my wife. It's so much better. So the second thing that I love about this camera, which is kind of counterintuitive with the first thing, it's its size. We have a deeper grip, but we have a much smaller camera. So again, this is the X-S10 and this is the X-T2. As you can see, there's a pretty huge difference in size in these two cameras. And this is just so light and great for travel photography and just to pick it up and shoot. You just love holding this thing. You know, it's such a compact size, but yet you can feel that it's a premium quality camera, so you're not holding a toy. So those two things in combination with each other, like the massive grip, which feels so good, and then the smaller camera, to me is incredible. So for me there's no comparison between the X-T2 and the X-S10 in handling and ergonomics. I actually hate this camera even more than I did before, since I'm using this one. So the third thing which I love about this camera is its sensor. So this actually has a sensor of the X-T4, which I will put up a few pictures from other Instagram photographers or YouTubers which use the X-T4, and I was always in love with the images it could produce. Now the X-T2 is no slouch in that regard. You know, you can take great images with the X-T2, but everything I saw from the X-T4 I was just so impressed by. Of course, it's partly due to the photographer behind the lens to take the photo, but yeah, I was just amazed about the quality as well. But I was always struggling to, you know, I was on the fence about the X-T4 in terms of purchasing it because it has basically the same ergonomics and handling as this camera, and I just really don't like it. And once I saw that the X-S10 has the X-T4 sensor and also the same autofocus, I was kind of sold. So yeah, I picked this up and I'm really happy about it. And I have the X-T4 sensor with a much bigger grip, smaller size. Yeah, the only thing you don't have on this camera compared to the X-T4 is the bigger battery, which they probably could have put in this bigger grip. But I mean, I feel Fuji has to compromise somewhere in this camera to get the price down, which is also automatically my fifth point, which I absolutely love about this camera. Is I talked about this before, but I bought this secondhand, used, for $750. It was from a guy that didn't really use it as much as he thought, and he bought it with the kit lens. and it was basically like new. But I bought it for $750 with the kit lens, the X-S10 to 45. And I actually sold that lens for 150 euros. It wasn't a bad lens. I used it for a bit and I was quite impressed with the quality and the versatility, but the aperture was kind of slow, 3.5, not a constant aperture. So I needed something faster and I bought this Sigma 18 to 50. I bought this for 600 euros. That's about 150 or 200 euros more than I paid for this camera, which is also a great camera. But you know, the autofocus is worse. Some other features as well. You know, it's an older camera. Plus the handling is not really my style. 8-bit only, whereas you can output 10-bit in this camera if you have an external recorder, which I don't at the moment, but it's a possibility. So a couple of things that, you know, this camera encompasses more. It has the X-T4 sensor, the new autofocus, or the newer autofocus from the X-T4, because now the X-H2S has a better autofocus system. But to me, this is a way better camera. Also the handling, like everything is better for me. And it's just a little bit more expensive. I think you can pick this up right now new for like 900, but I'm sure in the used market, you can shop around and you can definitely find some good deals on this. And for 600 euros, what I paid, I think there isn't a better deal out there. Also, as I'm shaking this, I'm seeing the sensor stabilize, so that's another thing. IBIS, this has IBIS, that camera doesn't. So price-wise, for 600 euros, this guy, you can't beat it. You just can't beat it, to me. So I actually have two bonus things that I like about this camera, which I didn't really consider. Is a Flippy screen, of course. I like the X-T2's like folding screen for photography. And this is a little bit more, yeah, cumbersome to use for photography, but for video, you know, put it on a gimbal, it's great. So yeah, Flippy screen, really love it. And then something that I thought about when I was making this video, I don't really use it that often, but I was looking at the camera so much that I totally forgot the pop-up flash, which is pretty cool, you know. If you make a film recipe and you take this camera to like a party with your friends, you can make some really cool pictures with the flash and then a film recipe, and it's like shooting on film a little bit. So yeah, in low light situations, just pop up this bad boy and you're good to go. So yeah, a little fun thing that they added. Definitely comes in handy sometimes. All right guys, so that wraps up my 5 things I absolutely love about this camera. I will be talking about the 5 things I hate about this camera, because it's not all smiles and whistles. Smiles and whistles? Smiles and whistles. So there actually are some things that I don't really like about this camera, and we'll talk about those in the next video. That's going to be the 5 things that I not necessarily hate, but I don't really like about this camera. So yeah, stay tuned for that one. Thanks.